And this is the one thing that is weaponized like almost to a nuclear level where you can ride it out over anything reasonable,
Right.
logical, legal. It doesn't even matter anymore because it's that phobia. It's the I don't want to be put in the racist card or the this card. And it feels like people are taking advantage of that.
That's exactly right. People are so paralyzed by any implication that they're in some form of complicity or activity with racism. They're so paralyzed by that it is the kind of rhetorical equivalent of a nuclear weapon, and it is being deployed to massive effect. You could, and as you said, you can literally call it. You can find racism in anything. An example that we give in Cynical Theories is the following. So imagine that you are a shopkeeper and somebody comes into two people enter your store at roughly the same time, a black person and a white person. And you are, the nature of your shop, maybe it's like a clothing shop, is you're going to go up and you're going to greet people and you say, hey, how can I help you? That kind of normal behavior you see in a lot of shops. And so now you as a shopkeeper have a decision. Do you approach the black person or the white person first? You can only approach one. It's a zero sum decision. You can just one person at a time. And the game is rigged so that you're wrong and it's racist no matter what you do. Because if you approach the white person first, that means you favor white people over black people and you are trying to treat the black person as a second class citizen who has to wait. That's racist. But if you approach the black person first, that's because you are afraid that the black person is going to steal something, or that you wanted to get the black person out of your store as quickly as possible because you don't want black people in your store. And that's racist as well. And so you have a situation where the entire ideology that's pushing itself has this rhetorical nuclear weapon that it can apply in every situation because it's allowed to mind read. It's allowed to read the worst possible motivations in everybody's heads at every given instant. And the reason is because any possible whiff of being associated with racism will cause people to freak out and apologize and therefore admit that they were somehow racist. So with the shopkeeper, you could imagine somebody then coming up, whichever decision was made, and saying, well, don't you think that's a little bit racist? And then the shopkeeper says, well, how? And they say one of the two things that I just said, whichever the situation applies, or some other made up thing. And then the shopkeeper is stuck in this position like, oh my gosh, I hadn't considered it. I didn't even realize that I was being racist. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause offense. Because there's such a paralysis around being implicated in such a thing that people will bend over backwards and even believe that they had secret unconscious biases and unconscious motivations that led them to act in a racist way, that they are unable and totally incapable of understanding or even seeing in themselves. In fact, most of the literature in what's known as critical whiteness studies over the last decade has been dedicated to the project of explaining why white people never actually know how complicit in racism they are. And they are willfully ignorant about it. They don't know, and they don't want to know, and they don't even possess what are called the epistemic resources to possibly understand it. And then they don't have the racial stamina and racial humility to do the work to increase those epistemic resources. Reams of literature for the last 10 years, reams of it. I mean, it has been the standard in that entire line of thought. And again, this is being taught to our journalists in college. It's being taught to our children in schools. It's being taught in the diversity classes to every student who goes to university. It's in the popular narrative through the journalists. And people are picking it up. And then anybody who's sensitive to that, who hears that phrase, well, don't you think that was a little bit racist? Is suddenly caught in this trap where they start falling back into it and then apologizing and confessing and looking for how it was. And then there's that same theory coming along and saying, hey, well, let me explain to you this idea of white complicity. Here's why all white people are always complicit in racism at all times, whether they want to be or not, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's you. And so the only real action you can take is to now acknowledge it and start trying to do better, to basically start thinking about race the way we think about race, which is all the time and in a very particular way, and act in accordance with that. In other words, join our religious faith about race and racism. So this is very, very well developed. Nobody's been looking at it. Nobody's been criticizing it for years in the academic literature. You still have mainstream academics running massive interference for it for the same reason. They don't want, if you criticize it, you must have racial motivations for criticizing it. So you must be a racist. No one's going to criticize it. There's no incentive to criticize it. Just causes you trouble and doesn't advance your career at all, doesn't get you any money, might get you fired. So why criticize it? So it's really kind of this perfect storm of, I don't know, rhetoric being weaponized against people. And this is why I actually say that I think it's evil, is because it weaponizes their own best impulses and turns them into kind of almost zombies in service to the cause by saying, you know, you need to care. I want you to care. And then the person's like, I do care. And they weaponize care. They weaponize concern that they've hurt somebody's feelings or offended them. They weaponize that. And there's something just profoundly evil about that.